Please welcome our second speaker, Clancy.
My name is Clancy Imislund, and I'm an alcoholic. Very glad to be here this evening. Glad to be part of this meeting. First thing I want to say that a week ago tonight, I was in Winchester, England, at the grave of a Hampshire grenadier. Those of you who are new don't know what that's about. But on the first page of the big book story, Bill's story, he talks about visiting that grave, and he quotes it. So I looked at it, and I see if he had nothing to say to me. And then the next day, on Monday, I flew with a friend from Australia to Venice, Italy, where I spent a day, and we went gondoling, and and on Wednesday, I got on the Orient Express, and rode it through Italy to Inschluss, to Austria, to Zurich, Switzerland, into France, and then underneath the Channel, onto London. And yesterday I was in London. This week has been building, and now I left London and came to the Marina Center. But I'm glad to be here. Dave, I want you to know, wherever you went, where'd he go? Dave, that I remember that night very well, 1986 it was, and we all held a meeting up 15 minutes to see if you'd come, and you didn't come. We finally had to start without you. We all tell nice lies just to make people feel good. And one other thing I want to say, and I'm not required to say this, but I think I'm going to say it anyway. In the mid-1960s, there was an old guy in the San Fernando Valley named Bill Davidson, and he was kind of an intense old fool, and he had certain strong ideas, like, for example, he thought everyone in AA should remain anonymous, not at the level of press, radio, and film, but from everybody. And when they would read the traditions, he would whisper along with the last tradition, principles before personalities. They'd say, "Oh, shut up, Bill. Not going to shut up. Needs to be said." And about 3 or 4 young guys, I knew about it because I sponsored one of them. He told me about it. They would join in and mock Bill. They'd say, "Principles before personalities. Is that right, Bill?" He said, "Shut up. Not going to shut up." And then some guy came from the Sylvan Cedros group and gave a talk and heard this and thought it was some sort of a spiritual breakthrough and took it back to his group. And they said, "Over there, they all say principles before personalities. Let's all say it." So they began saying it. And then it got to another group. And for about 20 years in the central San Fernando Valley, there were 4 groups where when they read their traditions, people would join in at the end and say, "Principles before personalities." You say, "Why are you saying that?" "I don't know." Then the cork got out of the bottle somehow, and the germs began manifesting themselves hither and yon. You go to some group in Alhambra, "Principles before personalities." "Why are you saying that?" "I don't know." And little by little, it got to be kind of a token of resistance towards the culture. And if you're new tonight, you heard him say it tonight, principles before personalities. They said at the end of chapter 5, for no reason whatsoever. They probably would say it at the end of the promises, too, if they knew what they were. But all I want to tell you is that it's okay to chant. It makes no difference to me. A lot of groups don't chant. Some groups do. In fact, the group where it started in San Fernando Valley, part of their format is, "Please do not chant when the readings are being done." And so it made a complete revolution. So if you want to chant, you can. And it just has no meaning. It's not done anywhere else in the country. It's just a kind of an aberration of some people. But you're welcome to do it. But remember, you're doing nothing for AA. You're mocking Bill Davidson. And he's been dead since 1971. That's the end of that lecture. Right. One more thing, I want to tell Paul how much I enjoyed your talk. And you're going to be 80 in October. Gosh, I'm one of the few people in the world who can say this to. I'm glad to see you younger people staying active. And I played ball all day today in the hot sun, and you tottered up to the podium. Well, that's where it goes. Anyway, I think maybe you better write that inventory next year if you make it. October the 31st 1958, thereabouts. I found myself in a bad situation. Two big guys, they're throwing me out of the midnight mission on Skid Row and said, "Stay out of here, you mooch son of a bitch." And it was raining and cold, and I tried to explain, but I'm not a mooch. 3 years ago, I was on the faculty of the University of Texas. Ads that I wrote, the LC and Elmer ads for the Borden Company, were running that very week in Life and Time and New Yorker, Saturday Post. I've had my picture in the New York Times. But it's really difficult to explain these things in midair, you know. I started out of that old mission, and I didn't know what to do. I couldn't think of anybody that would accept a collect phone call from me anymore. I was raining and sick, and I had a terrible feeling. I didn't know what the feeling was. I know what it is now because I've sponsored a couple guys who've had that feeling. I'm sure there are some people in this room who've had it. When you suddenly realize you're in a situation where there's no friendly direction. There's no place to go back to. There's nobody who cares. You burned them off. You burned them off one too many times. And I stood there, and if some guy had come up to me that morning, old guy, come up to me and said, "You know, you're dying, Slim. You're down to 120-some pounds. You've lost your wife and children. You'll never see them again. You've lost your career. Once upon a time, they called you a boy genius. You can't even get a job washing dishes. Look at you." And remember in Phoenix when you lost the car that you were supposed to deliver to Los Angeles? And that's where you lost all your ID and all your clothes, and you went in jail that night. That's where you vomited on the guy's bunk, and that's why he kicked your front teeth out. That's why your mouth is bleeding and you got no teeth. And all the clothes you got on, and you're just turned into a terrible, terrible tramp. Your little mother up in Wisconsin, you're an only child, and she's no longer allowed to accept phone calls from you because your stepfather's so tired of watching you play on her emotions, so she'll go down to her tiny little bank account and take some more dollars and send it to her little boy. Hope that'll help him. You've been in and out of AA for almost 10 years now, all over the country, laughing and smirking at these idiots and their simple little dumb questions, and their little dumb program, and their little dumb steps. He said, "Now you're dying," he might have said. And he might have said, "Why don't you go back to AA one more time and admit you're an alcoholic, see if it'll help you." And if someone had said that to me, and if I were in the mood to be honest, I'd have to say, "Pal, it isn't the way it looks. You don't understand. I'm not really an alcoholic. I got a lot of problems, but alcohol is one of the few things in my life that's pleasant. And I said, drink too much, but you don't understand why." But nobody came up and talked to me. I just stood there in this street corner, and I thought, I'm going to die in this rain. I'm cold, sick. But I'd been in and out of AA, and I'd had some bad ups and downs. And I'll tell you, if anybody here tell you, my friend, who's got more newcomer chips than I ever had, that if you want to keep going and you really get in bad shape, there's something you can always do. You can always go to an AA club. That's the only place in the world where the worse you look, the better they like it. Yeah. "This one's mine, Fred." Yeah. So I said to some mooch down there, "Today, says, pal, where's the AA club?" "The only one I know is out in Wilshire and Fairfax." I said, "Where the hell is that?" He said, "Well, Wilshire doesn't come down this far. You have to go up this hill to Hill Street and cut over to Wilshire and then walk west till you get to Fairfax." And okay. And I started walking. I had no idea how far it would be. Some years later, I counted my car. It was 7.5 miles. That's a long way to walk in the rain when you're cold and sick. But many people in this room know this fact as well, that when you get to a point where you have to do what you got to do it. That's all. You can't sit down and say, "I'm sorry, I wish it wouldn't happen," or maybe I'll call Mother. But it's time, you got to do it sometime. I got to this club and the same old crap and same old, "Hello, you're home, son." Oh, shit. And went in, sat down, and lurked around. And that night they had a meeting, and it was still raining, so I ate about 4 pounds of cake because I could eat that. I could chew it. And went in the meeting, somebody talked about gratitude, and I almost vomited up again, just dumbbells. And then everybody went home, like from club like this, a little bigger than this, and just the manager and I were left, just still around. I thought, I better put on my newcomer look. I'm going to die here on this rain. I said, I'm a newcomer, and I have no place to stay. Could you help me? He says, "You're in luck, kid. A guy named Joe Quinn left a 49 Merc in the parking lot last summer. It doesn't run, but it's dry. You can sleep in that. You want me to sleep in the abandoned car? Is that the AA answer? She says, yeah, good deal, huh? So I slept in that damn old abandoned car that I remember it was so cold. I bumped my mouth and started bleeding again. It was rainy and sick. I felt so bad. And I thought, how could I be like this? I was doing good once. And the next morning I got up and I went in this club. Thank God they opened at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I went in there and I had 4 pounds of cake. And they had a spiritual meeting where they talked about God, which just about made me crazy. I had to leave because I can't stand to hear about God. I know some people in AA have, well, Paul is kind of an agnostic, and God wasn't even important. People say, I've been searching for God for 30 years. I never searched for God 1 second. I've known where God was since I was 2 years old. He slowly circles the Our Savior's Lutheran Church in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And he gives it to sinners, and he gives it to Catholics. And I became a sinner that married a Catholic, and I was screwed. And by this time, there was no joking about it, because I had now broken 10 commandments out of 10. And when you've broken 10 out of 10, there's no going back in a strict church. So I always secretly knew I'm damned. And when I die, I'm going to go to hell. So I don't want to think about it, because you don't want to think about that much, I'll tell you. But then, yeah, I just had a terrible time. I went to this spiritual meeting. I lurked around that club that night. I went back and slept in that damn abandoned car. And the manager said, you're supposed to be a member to be in here during the week, but you obviously can't afford a membership. You can come in here, but don't ask away for money. None of your smart remarks. You have to go to a meeting every night in the club. Now, I almost rather die than sit through those idiots again, I've heard so many of those talks all over the country. It just seemed to me, I stayed drunk around the clock for 25 years, night and day. And then one day I walked through that door, and they told me to put the plug in the jug, and I did. And I've just never been so goddamn happy. When I sat in those damn meetings full of cake every night, and I had no idea that'd be my sobriety day. I didn't want it to be, had no desire to be sober, because to me, sobriety is a bad thing. So alcohol is kind of out of control, but sobriety is a bad thing. And I'm sure that, like many people I've seen come to AA, I know that alcohol is not my problem. It is when I'm drunk, but you don't understand what it does for me. It enables me to live in the world sometimes. I feel like I'm nothing when I'm sober sometimes. It's a black and white, crappy world. When I have a few drinks, there's a little touch of technicolor, and I feel like I'm something. And they always say, well, if you stop drinking, you'll feel better. That's why I know I'm not an alcoholic. When I stop drinking, it gets worse and worse and worse. And they say, well, if you're an alcoholic, you can't stop. I've stopped 100 times. My problem is not that I can't stop, but after a day or 2 or 3, someone seems to sneak into my bedroom and put an invisible spring in my gut. And the next day they start to tighten it. And it doesn't come out as, I need a drink. It comes out as just a little growing restlessness, a little irritability, a little tired of taking these sermons from what I did last year. Get off it! A little tired of realizing that I'm working with idiots, and this town is a crappy town. And I've spent thousands of dollars in psychoanalysis when I was making it big to find answers to that. And I found a lot of things that caused these emotions, and I really felt good about that till I realized I still had them. I just knew why. The only value late at night somewhere in a bar, some big moose comes over and says, you've been mouthing off all night. What the hell's wrong with you? Then you can tell him. I was repressed by the Norwegian Lutheran Church. The boy, shut up, I've tried reading books. I've gotten joined places, went to a lot of things. But I'll tell you, it's a sad thing for people like me. When I get feeling bad, the only thing I know that beats it is a couple drinks. I've often thought one of my own personal tests I'd like to give to a person if they're an alcoholic, I don't think it could be accepted as an AA thing, but it would be nice. Find some poor boob and keep him off booze for a week. Then give him a drink. And if he said, oh, join the club, baby. I'm not an alcoholic. And if I am, I can't return to God. And if you're new tonight, it doesn't take long to discover what AA is. AA is a place where alcoholics go. What are alcoholics? People who drink too much. They come here and admit their problem was alcohol with those 12 steps over there. Return to God, help others. That's just all wonderful. And that doesn't get me at all. And I wish I were an alcoholic. I wish my life were that simple. I wish I could be one of these simpletons who just stop drinking and live happily ever after. I stopped drinking once in my life, and I gave it all I got because I was in jail one night. I used to go to jail a lot for a while, just overnight. I'm not some big felon like Paul or something like that. But I get to a certain stage of drinking, and I have a tendency to counsel police officers and point out their errors and how they're doing it wrong. And I have a tendency to go to jail for overnight. And I get out in the morning, so I get out in the morning, go take a shower and go to work. But this one night I got out of jail one morning and they said, gee, while you were drunk last night, your little son died and we couldn't find you. And it almost made me crazy because I had a bunch of little girls and one little boy and he was the idol of my eye. And I just almost went crazy. I thought, oh God, we buried him and I took a little vow in his casket. I said, John Imislund, this will never happen again. I promise you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I stopped drinking, and it really was not painful at all. It was almost as like Easter. Somebody died, but he died for my sins, kind of. And we're going to make it better. We're going to live better. My daughters and I started doing things together. I came home from work, and we'd have dinner at home. And it was 2 or 3 weeks of as good a life as I've ever had. Because I just felt, we prayed for little John every night at dinner, and we all felt good. And we felt very sad he died, but we felt that he was in heaven. And one night, somebody snuck into my bedroom and put an invisible spring in my gut. And the next day it started. And just a little irritating, only now I had a new item. This God, this Norwegian Lutheran God, killed my little son who never had made a sin in his life to punish me because I'm a rotten son of a bitch. Well, screw you! And little by little after that, I couldn't drink, but things started to go to hell. My job, I didn't like my job anymore. I didn't like this town. My daughters, Mary, take your sisters and go to your room for Christ's sake. I'm sorry, we'll play tomorrow. Just hate myself. It was just mounting, and I just needed to drink so bad, but you're taking a vow in your dead son's casket. You ain't going to drink, I'll tell you. And one day it got so bad that my wife took the children to Mass, and I pulled the car in the garage and hooked up an exhaust pipe and turned in the morning and went to sleep and died. I just didn't know what to do, just crazed. And some guy next door was sitting having a cup of coffee and a breakfast in Nook or something and saw me go in there and heard the motor running. Walked over to see if I was all right and found me dead in the car, and they pulled me out and beat my chest and breathed in my mouth. They rushed me to the hospital and examined me for 3 days and determined I was seriously mentally ill and put me in the Texas State Insane Asylum, where I was until the next year. That's how I get when I stop drinking. You think that's funny? Wait till I get to the part where I get anemia and die. You'll like that. Jesus. This is a tough crowd you got here. I can see why they just have a birthday lighter. I'm not judging you. Don't. It took me a long time to get out of that nut house. Now, why would I stop drinking now? And I'll tell you why. Because in those meetings, I just hated them. And it kept raining. I was waiting for it to stop raining to get out of there. I saw a guy in the meetings that I'd seen in the movies. I'd seen him in a couple of movies. I thought, a movie star? Now, what does a movie star tell you? Rich and famous. I thought, I'll bet you this simpleton would like to have a new friend. And I moved in on him, but he didn't have a new friend. But later in the week, I was having still eating cake every night, and somebody bought me a hamburger once. I gummed that. But They started in on me as they do in fanatic groups like that PG and all the rest of those fanatic groups. I hate it. Better get a sponsor, boy. Time to get a sponsor. You're living in that damn abandoned car. You're not doing very well. So I moved in on old Bob the actor. I said, Bob, I've admired your program for some time. Would you be my sponsor? But this goes out and shaving, dirty blood on me. He said, all right, but I want you to do what I tell you. Oh, sure, Bob. And I found out, one of the worst things I found out later, he wasn't even a movie actor. He'd been a character role in 3 movies, and I saw him in 2 of them. And I thought he was in all the movies. I've been in more movies than he ever was, but I didn't know that, you know. And they said he wasn't a very good actor, but he was a good actor, because at meetings he acted nicely. And that was unusual for him, because he didn't, in private life, he was a right-wing fascist AA pig of the worst sort. Oh, do this, do this. I used to say, why would I take this crap from this guy? Because I didn't take crap from people. Because he was the only breadwinner I had going to get me out of this jam. I couldn't see any other way out. I was going to die if I didn't find somebody to get me out of there. And he tried to help me. He was a good man. I was the worst. I don't want to brag. But I was the worst type of newcomer there is, the worst. I know it is because I've sponsored a couple of people like it. And they're the worst. I mean, they come in the room and say, hi. You just wish you had a rifle and say, here's hi. You know. Now, I'll tell you what kind of people are. These are people who've been around AA year after year, and they drink every year, and they hang around again, come back with some new sad story, and want attention, and hit, and just come back and drink again. Can't tell them anything. I already know that. I heard that 10 years ago. Get off my back. And it makes you just crazy. But he tried to help me. And I tried to explain to him I wasn't really an alcoholic, but I appreciated his help. Perhaps I'd become one if I had some more money. I stayed sober. You know, you're new tonight. You heard the traditions if you heard it over the conversation. It's rather difficult. But the third tradition says the only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. I had no desire to stop drinking. I didn't want to go back to the nut house. What I had a desire to do was stop drinking long enough to get some money from this jerk, to get some teeth, and get some clothes, and go back to New York and say, I'm ready to work now and make some dough again. Well, we can trust you. You know, you blew up in Tracy Lock in Dallas pretty bad. I know that, but I've learned my lesson. My eyes are clear. My mind is clear. I'll work for nothing until you establish the fact that I'm doing pretty good, and then you pay me what you think I'm worthy. And I'll get to that, and I'll get a job, and I'll knock him dead. I'll give it all I got. And after a while, they say, who is this masked man back there in the copy department? He'll start giving me money, and I'll save it, and I'll come back to Los Angeles one day, and I'll buy the AA club. And some night when they're having an all-groups meeting, I'll lock the door and set it on fire. Couple years after that, I saw the movie Carrie, and I had a new thing to add to it. Now, poured blood on him too. God damn it, you know. But he tried to help me, and little did I know that he would save my life, because I didn't pay attention to what he said, because I was much smarter than he was for one thing. God, I was a graduate from a major university, and I wasn't expelled. Had to go to UCLA. There's a difference between being a sponsee and a sponsor. Nice. But he meant well, but he's dumb. I was out at a meeting one night. He took me to a meeting, and I listened to him. He said to somebody or to me maybe, he said, as long as you think your problem is alcohol, you're going to die drunk. Oh, Jesus, Bob. Why do you say things like that in AA meetings? That's what they're here for their alcohol problem. He said, no, they're not here for their alcohol problem. If their problem is alcohol, they shouldn't be in AA. I said, Jesus, Bob, don't say that. You embarrass me in front of these people. You know, the lights are a little hot on the set out there. I know that, but geez, don't say dumb things like that. What do you mean? He says, no, kid, if your problem is alcohol, here's what you do. You stop drinking and clean up your act, and you're home free. I said, Bob, that doesn't work. I've tried that 200 times. That's nonsense. He said, I know that probably doesn't work for you because I don't think your problem is alcohol. Something else that sounds like alcohol, and it kills a lot of people like us. But it's not alcohol. What could it be, Bob? She said, something called alcoholism. I said, oh, Jesus, Bob. Don't play word games with me. I look terrible, but I'm smart. Alcoholism, hooray, I'm cured. Shut up, he explained. And he gave me a long talk, and I was able to blot most of it out. But some of it got through, and it saved my life. He explained the difference. He said, in effect, an alcohol problem is overcome by stopping drinking and cleaning up your act and living sober. However, in this strange thing called alcoholism, which unfortunately for you and me looks exactly the same to the naked eye, this mind-consuming, perception-distorting, bodily eroding thing called alcoholism, you'll discover that stopping drinking and cleaning up your act has no significant long-term effect on your life other than to gradually make it so painful you can't stand it. I said, Jesus, Bob. Nobody ever told me that before. They always say the stop drinking is the answer. Nah, stop drinking, not the answer at all. Stop drinking is the worst thing in the world for alcoholics. I said, if that's true, then why do these alcoholics drink when it does bad things to them? He said, that's the whole point, kid. You don't seem to learn much in your 10 years around AA. And he had a Coke in his hand. He said, have you heard the fact that alcoholics are people who get an unnatural reaction to alcohol? Yes, I've heard that. It sets up a phenomenon of craving, and they can't stop. I said, oh, Christ, it's boring. He said, nah, that's podium talk. What makes an alcoholic is this, kid. He picked up his Coke, said, when I have a few drinks, it almost instantly alters my perception of reality. When I have a few drinks, it almost instantly changes my relationship to the world around me. When I have a few drinks, it almost instantly makes me taller and more secure inside and them less threatening to me. I said, Jesus, Bob, what's wrong with that? And he said, I quote, because it isn't really happening, you asshole. I said, oh, I see, yes. He said, and you drink too much, maybe said something phenomenal craving, I don't know. But eventually you get sober again. You always get sober again, you can't even stay drunk. I said, Jesus, Bob. I know, why, I drink and that happens to me. He said, that doesn't happen to most people. That's what's the hard thing to remember. We think it does, it doesn't. It happens to people like us. That feeling of goodness that comes out of it. In fact, I remember hearing some guy say once, you want to test to see if not you're an alcoholic? Think it to yourself. When your back's to the wall and the hounds of fate leaping at your throat, ripping and tearing you, give me a drink for Christ's sake. Do you really want it to go, blah, 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 blah. No more for me, thanks, I'm feeling it. You know. Or do you want to be like we are? Backs to the wall, hounds of fate ripping at your throat. Take a drink. Jesus, give me a drink. It doesn't go, it goes. Bring on your goddamn hound, Mrs. Baskerville. But I said, Bob, now that they're, okay, I understand that. But then why would, after they noticed them up, why would they drink then? He said, that's the other part of it, kid. He said, I guess you didn't know much for all the years you've been around AA. He said, but when people are born and grow up, it's not easy being a kid in anybody's life, no matter who you are. And you have to learn a lot about life, and we all have to go through problems in learning about life, problems we have to solve, and emotions and complexes and conflicts that we have to deal with. You have to learn, you have to give things to get things, you have to get along with people, and you have to sometimes take a bite out of a crap sandwich and you chew it, and you have to do a lot of things. He said the whole process is called maturing. If you become a mature individual, you live rather comfortably. You can hold a job as long as you want to, get along with the people, get along with your family, get along with your kids, live with the neighbors, go on square vacations and enjoy them. He says, but this almost never happens to alcoholics. Why not, Bob? He said, because people like us have learned along the way, when we have a long-term problem or a conflict or an emotion we can't deal with, we can drink it away. Here's to you, household finance. Here's to you, bitch. I never liked you anyway. Hey, Mr. Carlson, take your job and shove it up your nose. And it really works. But what I don't know is I'm building a closet full of unresolved emotions. And the day comes, for most of us, me, okay, I'm sick of shape and I'm being an idiot. I'm going to bear down now. I'm going to do a good job. I'm going to go to work every day, come home and take care of things. And I'm going to stop getting this crap from everybody. And never once know that for me it is impossible. Because no matter how high my goals are, sooner or later someone will trigger that emotional Pandora's box. Someone will hurt my feelings. Someone will put me down. Someone will try to make me look bad. And the fission starts. When I was younger and newer, what I'd do is pop a guy in the face and quit. But now I had kids, I'd take care of it. So you stand it. You trigger, how can I get even with that son of a bitch? And work and lay awake. And it gets worse and worse, and you get to a point where it's unbearable. Scientists say sometimes that people like us get to a point where you have to drink to preserve your sanity. Isn't that odd? But I drink eventually, and then it all goes to hell. They say, why did you drink? I don't remember, but you don't understand. He said, and that's why people like us, with our emotions, will always drink again. I said, Jesus, Bob, that's the story of my life. For the last 10, 12 years, I've had great jobs. I have good opportunities. I'm a great writer. And Jesus, and I blow up and have explosions and go to hell. Everything's so bad. He said, there's a name for people like you. I thought, uh-oh. I hope it's not the asshole word again. I said, what could it be, Bob? He said, you're an alcoholic. I thought, my God, if that's what an alcoholic is, that's what I am. I said, well, Bob, why doesn't AA describe it the way you do? Not this allergy, the body, obsession of the mind, that pseudo-psychological crap. He says, they do, kid. They do. Read on the wall. It says the only requirement for membership. He says you have to admit that you're having some problem drinking. I guess you are, or else you wouldn't be here. And then there's a dash, which in the English language means end of thought, beginning of new thought. Then you have to admit you're having a problem without drinking. And you might think about this, if you're wondering if you should be here or not. If you and I could drink, we'd be out drinking. If we could stay sober comfortably, we'd be out staying sober comfortably. When we can do neither, we're driven to rooms like this, and we sit there and watch our mind trying to find ways to get us out of here. And that really is true. It's funny, except so many people die, and so many people have gone. I've been speaking to this room for 30 years, 25 years. There are 3 people in here that I know much about. You know, new faces, they're all coming along. And I'm not putting it down at all. It's that way all over. Because alcoholism is such a sinister thing. And that was in December of 1958. And I was about 6 weeks sober. And since that day, I knew I was an alcoholic. And you think, well, yeah, you know, coming off Skid Row and losing everything. But that doesn't mark you an alcoholic. I sponsor the guy that put the flag on the moon. And I sponsor a movie director. And I sponsor clergymen. And I sponsor guys who shovel shit for a living. We all got one thing in common. We didn't all get thrown out of the mission. What we had in common was we got so we couldn't drink and we couldn't stay sober. That's the operative thing. Paul never got to a mission. Paul lived very comfortably in his parents' garage. physically, but not mentally. Not mentally. We all hurt as bad as we can hurt to come here, I'll tell you. There's no question how much hurts. And I didn't think I became an alcoholic, and my life did get better because I still lived in that abandoned car, but little bit, I knew it was wrong with me. At least I didn't secretly feel I was insane anymore. I could understand it. And the people talked, I could understand what they were talking about, and the book made sense for the first time. I read that damn book, the stupid book, but as an alcoholic, I didn't know it was there, on and on. The other problem I had, and I want to say quickly, because I know many of us want to get out of here and get home and count the flowers in the wallpaper. But yeah, I'm up to 146 on that one wall. But, then they start, time to work the steps. And I had to tell Bob, I appreciate what you've done for me, but I believe I'm an alcoholic, but I cannot return to God. I cannot return to God. I just can't do that. I can't do that. I can't go to that phony prayer crap. He says, nothing says you have to return to God. Oh, to a power greater than myself, Bob. Does that fool the other boys and girls? You know what the hell they're talking about, so do I. He says, it doesn't say that either. It said, read it. It says, you come to believe in something. You never go back to that immature, sick crap in your head. You come to believe in something. Can't you come to believe in God? I said, no, I can't, Bob. He said, can't you believe in AA? I said, well, I like it better than I did, but not much. He says, do you think I'm doing better than you are? I said, of course you are, Bob. He said, congratulations, I'm your new higher power. And he became my higher power, and I could accept that. He couldn't send me to hell. He tried, but he couldn't. And I'll tell you, I got little jobs. He got me little jobs, and funny little thing. I had some jobs. I lived in a little one-room apartment over in Hollywood for a while, and I got a little beginning job as a beginning writer in a medical corporation over on Valley Boulevard. And this was my big chance now to make my start again. Still had no teeth, but I learned to carry my lip like this. They just thought I'd been burned in a fire. And I had some hand-me-down clothes, and I went to work, and Bob said, don't do anything, don't quit or do anything until you call me. Or I wouldn't have to. 3 days I was there, and I heard somebody behind me talking about my lack of teeth. And it started, boy. You son of a bitch. I didn't say it. And I decided, maybe I'll just pop him this once, just for the fun of it. I thought, if I do that, Bob will kill me. So Bob! This guy! And he talked me through it. I said, that won't help. He said, try it. And I did it, and it helped. There must have been 50 times in that first year I was ready to go. And I'd call him the old fool. And I changed a little bit, little by little. By the time I was 5 years sober, I was director of advertising for that big medical corporation. When I was 7 years sober, another guy and I were brought to Hollywood, and we created something called Boss Radio. Became the #1 hard rock station in the world. We all wore shiny suits. 10 years sober, I was downtown doing public relations for an oil company. 15 years sober, I was a marketing director in Beverly Hills. And it's just slicker than snot on a doorknob. Just, hey, baby, how you doing? And in this time, at first, my early time, Bob had got me one day. I was going to commit suicide. He used that pain to get me to write an inventory that I swore I'd never write, because I've taken my inventory of the psychiatrist. I was the out-of-work actor. And little by little, I'd made amends to people. And the only therapy I've had since 1958 is Alcoholics Anonymous. And I knew all about it the day I walked in. I just hadn't done it. And it's so easy to think, I know that. I don't have to do it. I knew that. And that's why you have to start all over again. I hope you get a sponsor. And the great thing about Bob is I didn't realize this till relatively recently in my life. In my early sobriety, what changed me, I began to think, Jesus, Bob seems to know how I feel. And you think, what's the big deal about that? I had never known a person that I believed knew how I felt. My dad didn't. My doctor didn't. My psychiatrist. They all said they did. We know how you feel. You want to just say, no, you don't know how I feel. But he knew how I felt. And what's important about that? I'll tell you what's important. Everyone in this room has had enough advice to last him 10,000 years. People like us just get advice from everybody, always. Passers-by. Think you ought to go to rehab. They're just on and on. Everybody you know. And you just learn to shine it off. But if you find somebody that you believe knows how you feel, that becomes meaningful information from that person. And you may find yourself taking actions you would never take otherwise. I remember standing to the Brentwood meeting. I didn't often go there, it was too fancy, but old Bob, we were having a cup of coffee. He said, "See the woman over there?" "Yes, I see her. Hate her. I want you to apologize to her." "Why should I? Someone told me at the Monday night meeting at the club you called her a bitch." She is a bitch. "Why do you think she's a bitch?" "She told her new girl to stay away from me." "Well, she's right. You apologize." I can't think of a person in the world who would have told me that. That would have said, "To hell with you. I'm not going to abase myself in front of that old bag so she can go and tell all her friends that Clancy knuckle-under to me. I'm smarter and better than she is. I'm having bad times. I wouldn't give her this satisfaction. Screw her." But someone that I believed knew how I felt. So I found myself, "I'm sorry I called you a bitch." "You bitch." But little by little, my actions changed. And one of the strange things that happened, over a period of time, I got to believe in AA as my higher power. I loved Bob, but I realized that there was a power greater than Bob. That's the AA. And over a period of time, after he died, I got another sponsor who was a very spiritual guy. He never told me to pray, do anything, but he showed me with his life. I found myself one day praying. I thought, "Oh God, I hope a lightning bolt doesn't come in." Oh, there he is now. Boom. But I came to, little by little, believe in God. I never came to believe, not in that childish panic. But I remember going back to Wisconsin, taking my mother to church and sitting in the Norwich Lutheran Church and thinking, "My God, the same God is in this church as in my meeting in West LA." And I never would have known it. And most of these people don't know because they're sitting here looking afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. He loves us, I suppose. And I've prayed earnestly to that God for 45 years on a continuing basis now. But the main fact is this: Alcoholics Anonymous has been the only thing, because the point of AA, took me a long time to discover this. What's the point of AA? Get sober, shape up. Nah, that is partially. The point of AA is this, I believe: to do the same thing slowly that alcohol did fast. To little by little change my perception of reality. To little by little change my relationship to the world around me. To little by little feel more secure, like I'm part of something. And it's a great thing. And when that happens, your life changes. And my life changed a little faster than I wanted it to, I was afraid. I was 15 years sober downtown doing a great job in marketing. And in some hideous fit of AA fanaticism, I found myself leaving that job, and for the last 34 years I run the mission on Skid Row that threw me out in 1958. And people say, "Why would you give up your great career to run that damn mission?" And I could never think of a good answer. Well, for such a significant decrease in salary, I couldn't pass it up. But I've been gone a week, but Monday I'll do something I don't think any of you will do, I don't suppose. I live over here. I'll get on the Santa Monica Freeway, go downtown, get through Beverly Hills, park underneath our building in the middle of Skid Row, take a walk around the building, step over the bodies of men, women, and children dying from alcoholism and drug addiction and abandonment and insanity who aren't much different from us, except they're dying, and go in that building, and we spend all day with other people trying to find some way to get through to these people so they will try to be interested in what happens to them. And it's very, very difficult. And go home at night, tomorrow night, and I'll feel better than I felt going out of those Hollywood buildings snapping my fingers. And all I'm trying to tell you, I know we have a lot of new people here tonight, and I heard a lot of exhortations from old-timers that never did a damn thing to me. But I want to tell you something. I know how you feel. And I want to tell you, somehow here there's an answer. And nobody cares whether you think it is or not. What you have to do, you have to get a sponsor, you have to get involved, you must do things you already know, you must do things that seem stupid to you at the time, and look back and say, I'm glad I did that. Because that's what AA is about. Because AA, I was thinking tonight, is the same exactly at the Marina Center as it was June 10th, 1935 in Akron, Ohio, the day it founded. And what they did then is the same thing we try to do here. One alcoholic talking to another alcoholic to help him reduce his feelings of difference, at least enough so that he will begin to take actions he does not yet believe in. And when that moment comes, life begins to change. Thank you.